I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down.
It's in the night away. It's in the night away.
He drinks a whiskey drink, he drinks a vodka drink, he drinks a lager drink, he drinks a cider drink. He sings the songs that remind him of the good times. He sings the songs that remind him of the best times.
Oh, Danny boy, Danny boy, Danny boy.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down.
It's in the night away. It's in the night away.
He drinks a whiskey drink, he drinks a vodka drink, he drinks a lager drink, he drinks a cider drink. He sings the songs that remind him of the good times. He sings the songs that remind him of the best times.
Don't cry for me, ex-door neighbor.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never g
I do not endorse anything said in this stream.
Hey, here's the disclaimer.
Though I know I should be wary, still I venture someplace scary. Ghostly haunting, I turn loose. Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice!
Welcome everybody now into Poorly in the Future. I am your host, Memes. Hopefully to be joined very shortly again by my co-host, now that her pewter is fixed and everything, on Piper. The reason being, I am bad. Because, yeah.
낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자 오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일
Was mostly for me to utilize tobacco. Hold on. We has a banner for that because yes, no, I'm blown. No. Oh God, have I been doing this for that long? This is terrible, everyone. But speaking of everyone, since this is an interactive show as well, welcome LDG as well as Joe. Shout out to my patrons Joe, Franco, and Dave M. This broadcast is helped made possible by viewers like you. So how about this? How about this? Seeing as I actually prefer discussion with plenty of people and everything, how about some topics? Because the last time Miss Piper was here, we were discussing things such as reincarnation. And my Bayesian, well, as a child, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then, getting as an adult, I'm like, oh, yeah. And then the more and more I learn about science, and the more and more I talk with different people, and have a very broad perspective, a number of, some may say, diverse, different views, if you would. Yeah, it may totally be a thing because if the universe is going to conserve energy, well, that's one of those laws. See, that's the thing about science. I sit back and I'm like, I remember in science, they're like, all right, if you have an idea, you see something, you have an observation. Why might that be the case? You would hypothesize. You would propose a hypothesis. And if experiment ends up bearing out your hypothesis until you find something better, it's a theory. It's a workable theory that you're operating within the bounds of science with. If that theory ends up you're unable to falsify it at all, and you're like, well, this seems to be the way things are, and it becomes a law. I just sit back and I'm like, why haven't we had any laws in a while? Why does everything seem to be a theory now? Do we just not have the scientific? Do we not know? Or are we too afraid? Are we afraid to maybe reconsider some of our axioms? Yes, I totally went there. Thank you, Jen. But here's what we're gonna do because we're here, and I need to fill in a little bit of time here. So what we're gonna do is, oh God, yes, I totally reuse so many thumbnails and everything. But here's here's what we're gonna do because I remember Professor Keating. Shout out to Professor Brian Keating. The, in my opinion, Nick Fury of the physics community is what essentially he's like, oh, I get people saying, oh, it's getting email. I have a theory of everything. Just do the math for me and I'll share the money with you. It's like, technically, that's how I think Adam Rees ended up winning his Nobel Prize or something. But all I'm saying is, he's like, why don't I get an experiment of everything? So I'm going to attempt to put together an experiment of everything by basically just linking the things that I know. Hey, Sherry, welcome. Welcome here. So we're just discussing just the cosmos and everything and what might be going on and where we may be in this universe of stuff and things. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go into black holes and everything. So where are we? Hold on. So, oh my God, I'm confusing myself because I can hear myself playing. So we'll do this. All right. We're going to touch upon black holes and why they might be stranger than we think. Different things. Let's take a look, shall we? Oh, we shall. The most dangerous stuff in the universe. Strange stars explained. Here's again, in a nutshell. The
All right,
most terrifying
we're gonna
substance
skip
in the
forward
universe.
to
Strange.
a little bit of.
Okay,
Okay,
here's Matt.
take it away, my friend. Here we go.
In that state, it forms a superfluid rather than a plasma, a superfluid even denser than neutronium. We sometimes call a neutron star with such a quark matter core a quark star. Now, neutrons are comprised of 1 up and 2 down
So-
quarks.
All right. So as this is very creepy here, the whole point of playing that little thing was so you could see the image there because the image is important. Actually, let's go back to the image because if it is important, then okay, you see this thing right here, and this is what got my noggin a jogging. Because apparently, I had heard that when you're solving the Einstein equations, it's like, well, at first it's like, oh, we find like a singularity. It's like, well, it's probably just an error in the math. We're just gonna throw that out. Even in Wolfram Alpha, it's like, well, ignoring removable singularities. Removable, you say? I thought it was part of the system. Basically, we don't really know how to explain that. Except that when you add in a Mobius twist, it seems to explain it. It just seems to make sense. Just saying. But the second thing that you run into, yes, this Mark, the noggin was a jug. I totally stole that from other folks because reasons. But the other thing, the amazing thing that ends up coming up is there ends up being a second singularity, if you would, in the equations. And what ends up happening is as you're increasing the mass of basically like a neutron star, eventually that second singularity, basically a ring-like singularity, once it gets along the outside, I'm like, is that just the event horizon? Is it literally in a, I don't want to say non-perturbed state because can a black hole just happen without a boom? Because it's technically supposed to be able to happen. Because I've heard it's like, well, some stars they just kind of collapse into a black hole. I'm like, wait, what? There's no supernova. There's no boom. There's no remnants of stars and stuffs and things. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm just gonna double check something else real quick. Am I doing that? Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not sharing the other tabs. But essentially, I'm sitting there. I'm like, well, essentially, the neutronium thing that he was talking about is basically, if I remember learning this back in like high school, it's like, all right, if you had like 1 tablespoon of that, it's the equivalent of like Mount Everest as far as technical weight on the Earth would go. It's like, that's freaking ridiculous, man. It's like the mass of the Earth and like, I don't know, a couple kilometers or something like that. Basically the size of like New York City, something like that. It's really freaking dense. And I'm like, all right. So you get to the point where it gets so freaking dense. There's so much freaking pressure going on that, okay, it's like, because in a neutron star, it's like normally you have protons, but then the electrons jump into like the protons, so you're combining all neutrons, and at that point, it's just kind of just go whoop, and the quarks just kind of start breaking apart, and it's like you just kind of got a quark, a gluon soup, because gluon is supposed to be the force bosons, I believe, that are basically just kind of binding things together. Maybe the mesons. I'll have to double check my charts and everything, but basically what ends up happening, it's like, all right, you're breaking into the more and more fundamental elementary particles. And if said star is rotating, it's kind of like rotating around. It's going really fast, usually the more and more dense it gets because of the figure skater thingy. Because it's like, all right, you're spinning around, you're a figure skater. As you're bringing your extremities inward, often you see an increase in rotation there. I'm like, all right, that's very interesting. So you got rotation. How would it balance on the inside? Because I'm like, all right, you've essentially getting an equivalent of like a superfluid, because it's like a superfluid is supposed to be just because you get what was it? I think it's helium, liquid helium. Basically, when you cool it down to like close to absolute zero, it's basically essentially no friction. And even Professor Wolfram, at one point during one of his science Q and A's, when he was going yakking on about the hard problem of turbulence for about an hour, at one point he's like, he talked with some of these folks that did these liquid helium experiments, and it's like, well, technically, in theory, if it has like no friction, whatever you would do, you would essentially, whatever state the system was initially under, you would be able to observe the same state, which for pretty much everything else, yeah, you're not really, doesn't really work for us that well. And a couple of scientists were like, if you ask us if we actually have seen this, it's like, yeah, we have seen this. We don't know how it works. And essentially, they had to publish their findings because they were afraid people would make fun of them. Yes, I totally went there. Basically, I just said there were scientists observing science that they kind of just went, "Hey." This is why I think inclusion is good. And this is one of the problems. It's like some ideas, they can seem so crazy. It's like, that can't possibly be true. So we're not even going to put that out there. It's like, What if that was literally the lining to just like everyone else and being like, oh my god, that's the one little piece I needed, and now what I've constructed makes sense. I think we're proverbially shooting ourselves in the foot. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Welcome, 70s rock fan. I see you there, as well as Dr. Smith. Thank you, sir. But I'm just looking at this, and I'm like, wait. So essentially, if we're getting a superfluid under the most extreme conditions, something that's on the cusp of becoming a black hole to the point where it's like, all right, it gets to the point. I'm like, is a black hole just strange matter in equilibrium? I don't know this. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Hail Piper.
Hey.
Welcome.
Wow, my eyes are messed up. This
Hey, it's par for the course. But
is true.
I was just postulating that I'm sitting back, and I'll go back to the little thingy here because we were talking the sciencey stuff. We had touched upon the last time we were on. We were kind of talking reincarnation, and like as a kid, I'm like, that makes sense, and as like an adult, it's like, oh, that can't possibly be true. And then the more I learn about science, it's like that may actually really be true.
Right?
Well, because conservation of energy and stuff. So it's like, all right, here we go.
Mm.
Let me.
In that state, it forms a superfluid rather than a plasma. A superfluid even denser than neutronium. We
That-
sometimes call a neutron star with such
Neutronium, like 1 teaspoon of that's like it weighs as much as Mount Everest on Earth.
Whoa. Okay. That puts
So
perspective.
like
All right.
this is denser, and it's a superfluid. So it means like there's no friction.
Oof. Whoa.
So, yeah. No, we're talking about extreme. This is like a super dense neutron star that's technically kind of on the cusp of becoming a black hole. So
a quark matter core, a quark star. Now, neutrons are comprised of 1 up and 2 down.
So, all right. I should probably actually go to the video when I was going to do it. But essentially, I'm like, all right, if that becomes technically what they call strange matter, I'm like, it basically in the Einstein equations, when you're like doing the mind stuff, apparently, like initially they found like, oh, here's a singularity. That's probably just a relic of the math. We're just going to throw that away. It's like, all right. But then a second singularity arises. Kind of like a ring-like singularity that as the mass increases, it goes from the center and expands outwards towards like the actual outside of the star. Because like that was the main thing I took from this image. It's because I'm looking at that, I'm like, all right, if this was like kind of like the center of that would be a singularity, what if this outside just keeps growing and growing? Once it hits the outside, I'm like, does it just become a black hole then?
Hey.
A black hole without the boom. That's because technically, because I've heard like this is supposed to happen. I'm like, has anyone ever seen this? Like, is this just like how it happens? It just gets enough stuff and things that I'm like, all right, so it's a black hole is essentially like it's strange matter in equilibrium, or some may say a strange fluid. Oh my god, if that's one of those things, if it catches on, I'm like, it's technically accurate because at that point, I'm like, oh, it becomes strange matter. And he just said it was a superfluid. Does that not make it a strange fluid?
Better than a gender fluid, I guess.
Hey, as somebody that is kind of fluid, it's like you are a furry, you tend to be a gal.
It's easier to explain, I feel like.
No. Oh dear.
No, superfluids I'm talking about is easier to explain.
Oh. Well, I mean, you were talking about the comet area. Okay, yeah, no, I skipped over that. But yes, bubbles. Bubbles actually probably explain a lot, especially the membrane. And they go pop.
Oh,
But
true.
oh god, that actually made me. Well, see, here's the thing. I'll just say words out of my mouth. And very often I'm like, well, that just kind of sounds fun. I'll say it. I'll kind of be in a joke. And then I'll learn more and more about things. And I'll say these things around some folks that are actually like really smart. And then they'll actually pause and they'll think about it and be like, well, potentially. I'm like, holy crap. I was just going for whatever seemed like the most novel, entertaining thing. And on some higher level, it may actually be true. Life is a comedy.
Mhm.
So how are we doing, Miss Piper? What are your thoughts on this? When you see an image like this, what comes to mind?
That it's pretty.
Yeah. Well, the beauty. This is the thing. There are a lot of physicists that like they use beauty as a guiding feature, and like even Thad, the guy that basically I interviewed, I'm like, he seems to explain quantum field theory geometrically. I'm like, the numbers add up. I could type them in Wolfram Alpha and everything. He just happens to be an individual that's outside mainstream academia right now. So it's like, if it was Edwin that published this and it got reviewed and everything, I tend to think I'm like, well, everybody would be talking about like we'd solve string theory. It's just not quite string theory. It's like string theory basically has the math right. It's just the model. It was a good idea. It's great for relating things because this is the thing I was talking with even Jen, my co-host from Eigenrangers yesterday. It's like, how do you suppose you have the answer? Just hypothetically, if these answers were the answers we were looking for, but it's outside how folks that are in the community talk about things. It's like, well, you're kind of speaking a different language. So of course they're going to be going like, Nani? What the heck are you talking about? So that's why I wanted to have someone like a Jonathan Garrod and everything. He's worked on the Wolfram Physics project. He has a number of published articles and everything. And I'm like, if I can try to start to follow what he's saying and pick up on some of the lingo as well, maybe I can better communicate what I think is going on. And then folks that are smarter than me can kind of like double check and be like, well, that's not exactly what's going on, but here's what's actually going on because, well, science is cool. It's the only thing that's going to unscrew us. It's my opinion. Oh, hi, Jen.
We could only keep learning.
Well, this is the thing. It's what, well,
Kitty,
how about
found
this,
the
Piper?
microphone.
Pardon?
I said the kitty found the microphones. They're
Oh, yeah, they like to do that. They like nomming on wires. But what are your thoughts on this? People unironically believe, one, math is somehow real, and two, nothing exists.
Well, we needed to figure out a way to communicate with each other, and math is a universal language in that sense. So while we put the name to it, like it existed without us. We just put a name to it. But the whole nothing exists, that actually depends. It really depends a whole hell of a lot on what line of science that you want to talk about. Right there.
Well, isn't that kind of like the thing? It's like the crazy thing is a lot of the science, or at least math, it seems to work. It seems to actually model the world in a number of ways that you wouldn't really even think. Because now we're hearing all these things about complex numbers and like, because the whole it's like, well, you can't take the square root of -1. How do you get around that? Well, you basically just we create I, which is it's an imaginary number, and it's like, how the hell does this work? It's like we just say it works, and there is an actual construction. And now you're hearing folks talk about the complex plane, and I'm sitting here looking at these models. I'm like, it's just kind of like the natural extension of what's going on. That's why it's like that was talking about quaternions. I mean, talking about quaternions, and again, that was one of those science things where basically you take kind of like a sphere like this, kind of something pretty like this, and you basically just it can go really big, and it basically rather than just doing the standard 2D graph where you just kind of go over and across, it's like it has additional dimensionality. It's incorporating like the complex plane or whatnot. I'm like, who was it? Was it Newton or it was somebody, and they ended up carving the idea into a tree, and it seemed to be able to do so much, but they're like, yeah, we have calculus, and that just seems really complicated, so they just kind of ignored it for like the past 150, 170 years. and now we're coming back to it's like, oh, is this just the other thing that we kind of knew about that we didn't spend time on because we were able to do all of these other stuff and things with what we already had?
Yeah.
It's kind of like not getting like your full set bonus for like armor and like a dungeon raid or something. It's like I could do this, but meh. But that last 8-piece buff makes all the difference. For me personally, it was the 3-piece Netherwind. I love getting that extra frostbolt. It's so cool. Nerds. See, there were 2 giggles there. You had the initial giggle. It's like you're geeking out, and it's like, oh my god, I caught the reference.
Right? Like, oh, I get it.
Or am I thinking about the 5? No, there was 2. Okay, I might be lying about that. I
Oh, no.
apologize. But Brian, welcome. I think no, we were talking about the other Brian. No, we were looking at Lewis's article. I'm sorry, I didn't check your messages, Jed. I have no idea if it was nothing at all or it made a lot of sense. All I saw was I'm like E to the I to the, I'm like, oh, that was like a function that I had put into like Wolfram Alpha that came up with some pretty stuff. I'm like, I wasn't able to make anything of it. I wasn't able to make a connection to anything else in the world. I also didn't spend a lot of time because I got shiny somewhere else. That's the thing. It's like my strength is not necessarily doing the thing. It's just kind of going through a series of tubes that are the internet and the world, talking to a whole bunch of different people, and seeing if anything kind of lines up and maybe makes sense. I'm like, oh, maybe these people should know that each other exist, and maybe like not initially by fighting. So yeah, I mean, there may very well still be fighting just because we're human beings. Well, Piper. Actually, okay. We'll go into the social aspect right now, but so Piper, we all know human beings would never disagree, especially on the internet, and there would never be chaos depending on who you talk to.
Right. Never.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
I mean, well, people would do exactly what they said they're going to do. It's not like they would say one thing, hold one thing as a principle that was so ideal to them, and then do something completely different.
Unheard of.
Your eyes make this so much better right now. Just because I'm looking at it, I'm like, that totally doesn't match what I imagine your actual face is doing right now. And I'm like, the translation is just so beautiful.
That's what happens when I don't wear contacts.
Well, these things, I don't agree that they never disagree. Well, let's see. You're free to disagree here. At this point, I don't even know whether we're positive, negative, or like the complex root of I. I don't even think. Oh, because I also watched a math video earlier. One of the guys, it got recommended to me. It's like, what happens when you take the square root of I? And I'm like, wait, you're already doing something that's supposed to be the square root of -1 that you're not supposed to do. Now you're taking the square root of that. I'm like, I see what you did there. You responded with a happy face. So I'm like, this is a great channel. This is the thing. It's like, I see all these folks, and it's terrible because this is kind of why I got out of the politics a little bit, just because like I see, okay, different stories. Very often you'll occasionally see a lot of the same actors coming around, and they're doing a lot of the same things. And I'm like, wait, didn't you just say that this was a huge major deal? And like everyone, oh, you need to do this and everything. And now aren't you kind of just doing the same thing that you were calling out like a while ago? And I'm like, I understand why you're doing it. This is the way the system is set up. You want clicks, you want views, you want attention, you want to kind of weave together a particular story that you can kind of self-justify. Well, we're using their tactics against them. Why? Well, because we can. Look at how I'm like, weren't you just saying that was a whole load of crap and people shouldn't be doing that? And now you're just doing.
Right.
Have you ever come across anything like that at all?
Always. Come on now. There's always going to be those that are kind of. There's always going to be followers and they're just gonna go wherever the popular flow is, no matter how contradictory that is. The part that gets weird is when they try to pretend like they never they were never hardcore about something that they were definitely hardcore all about.
Well, my thing is, I don't really care. Go wherever the heck you want. Do what you want to do. It's like, as long as I'm another person, I really don't care. If you just happen to like those food. See, that's kind of my line where it's like, as soon as you tell me you can't be friends or associate with this person because they're a terrible person, I'm like, no, I'm done. I just at that point, I'm just like, no, you don't tell me who I can and cannot be friends with. I'm like, these are things that we've learned over the years, and I'm just at that point, I'm like, well, what if I have friends that say the same thing about you? Because at
Right?
that point, then it's like, all right, then I just disappear into a cave, never to return. Because everyone's gonna hate at some point. It's like, oh, these people are terrible people within certain degrees. I'm just like, this is too much to keep track of. Screw this. As long as you haven't been terrible to me, don't harm children. It's like, I don't really fucking care. Pardon my French.
Yeah, ouch.
That's the thing. Oh, welcome, Dad, man. Oh, welcome. That's the thing. And again, I think this models a lot of physics. There's something about gravitation. I think they actually call it gravitas. Of like, people want to go there, but then it's like, yes, those people that are like, no, that totally didn't happen. And with the internet now it's like, oh, a bunch of folks aren't a big fan of this person. Oh, I got the receipts from all that BS that they're lying about. Let's make a
Ooh.
video. Let's do a live stream. Let's expose them. Oh, look at all these direct messages. Oh, let's just make all these things public right now. And I'm like,
Oh
again,
dear.
you can do what you want. I mean, I tend to think like a private message tends to be a private message. If you're gonna violate that, you probably have a pretty good reason. And I also list like mild-mannered journalist on Twitter, so I need to be at least somewhat respectful, or at least attempt to.
Yee.
You had a little twitch there.
Yeah, I did.
And that's oh yes, hermit life. Yes, hermit. Why do you suppose everything devolves into crabs?
I thought it was turtles.
No, it's turtles all the way down. I conjecture.
Oh, but
Now,
it's crabs all the way up.
basically. No. At least because I keep on seeing these videos, and it's like anytime you have like a creature in the world, and there ends up being a branching, it ends up trending towards crab for some reason. And I think about it, I'm like, well, crabs are kind of ingenious and stuff. I mean, you got the armor and everything, and it's like, unless you're like a tiger shark, what's really going to F with you? And you can pinch things, and I'm not really sure what crabs eat. I just think they go around. And I don't know. Does it take much energy to be a crab?
I guess it depends on the crab, because there are like the hermit crabs that actually have to put effort into like finding their houses and stuff. They can't just like chill and just do crab stuff.
Oh my god, you just brought me back to my childhood. I remember. I was a young memes. I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. We come back from the beach one of the first times, and I collected some shells and pretty stones because I like shiny, pretty things. And I had a nice shell, and then I looked in the shell the next day. I saw some legs, and I realized that shell was occupied by a crab. That crab got very dried out, and it didn't quite make it.
Oh no.
That's where your story brought me, Piper.
Oh,
But continue.
shit.
We're discussing crabs.
I was gonna say when I was a kid,
I also murdered a lot of ants.
I scared of ants.
You're scared. Why are you scared of ants?
Ants. Shut up.
What? Like bugs in general, or just specifically ants?
Ants.
Ants. Did you
And,
get ants in your
and
pants?
arachnids. Ants and arachnids.
What? Did you have a bad experience with ants?
Yes, actually, I did. Pretty traumatic. But I like hermit crabs. I used to catch them and play with them. and then let them go. Except for the one time when
I'm
I
not
asked
going
if I
to press because I didn't. It would be inappropriate for me to ask to share such a traumatic experience. I'm going to go pie it. All I'm saying is X-Mrs. memes. She had a terrible thing with caterpillars. I thought it was bizarre, and apparently a bunch of them had dropped on through her hair when she was a young X-Mrs. memes, and because all of a sudden just a caterpillar just crawling along, and I saw a reaction. I'm like, that did not seem to accord with what I would expect a person's natural reaction to a single caterpillar would be. So no, I understand. I understand.
Yes.
I will not press. Okay.
Well, no, it's fine. When I was like, I wondered why I was so terrified of ants specifically too. And then my parents told me that there was one time I was like a baby and strapped in a car seat, and they had took me out of the car while still strapped in the car seat and set me in the grass. And this is Texas. Our ants are fire ants in Texas and Louisiana.
Oh
Those,
no.
yeah, those are the ants we have. And they don't build like big ant hills. I mean, they can, but sometimes they don't feel like it. So apparently they didn't know. They set me down in some ants and I was covered in fire ants when I was a baby, and I was shrieking. And I was like, yeah, I guess that would definitely make me afraid of ants. If I see a single ant, I'm fine, but I'm looking for the other ones.
So basically, when you were a baby, you were strapped down, unable to move, covered in fire ants.
Yeah. And it
That-
only took like a second from them sitting me down to turn around and get something to boom, covered in fire ants. That's all it really takes.
They move quick.
Yeah.
I kicked in Florida. They have some of the couple foot tall ant hills, and I saw just a big tall mound of dirt, and I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh,
no.
something to break!" I kicked it. My leg got covered in fire ants. I think my parents took care of me pretty quick. It's like I kicked it and I realized, oh, there's ants everywhere now. Okay, run away, run away.
You're like, oh, I fucked up. Yeah. Freaking fire ants, man. They're you don't fuck with fire ants.
The worst. Oh my god. I'm going to hell for this. But so we were probably like 14, 15 years old. My buddy, my Greek buddy and I, and we get the idea. It's like, let's throw. Oh, look, there's a beehive. It's right on in front of my house. It's like a beach ball, or yeah.
Oh,
No, no, no,
no.
no. It's like at least a volleyball, maybe a little smaller than a beach ball. And it's like it was really big. It's like, let's throw pine cones at it. So we just started throwing these pine cones at it, and we kept hitting it and hitting it. And this was a solid thing. So eventually it started rocking and rocking because the angular momentum kept picking up. And eventually it tipped to one side. It fell. It split in two. And all of a sudden, a vortex of bees just kind
Oh.
of went out. And also, my buddy and I, we just look at each other like, oh, we bolt. The front door was like less than 30 feet away. We just bolted inside. And then we closed the door and we're looking. And there's this big vortex of just bees spinning around like this big tree in front of my house. I'm like, whoa. And all of a sudden, this poor little kid on a bike, he starts riding by the front of the house. And we're like, no.
Oh,
And we
no.
just went, and just several seconds later, also, we saw him and we just went, ouch. Ouch! Ow! And then he just jumped off his bike and started running down the street. We looked at him like, oh my god, did we just kill a kid? Nobody ever investigated. I think it may have been a girl that I had a crushes on, younger sister,
Oh, no.
brother, or I think it was probably my brother's future friend. Or I don't know. Like the statute of limitations. This is why I'm going to hell. Among many other reasons. It's like I'm not a good person. This is the reason why I tried to compensate in later half of life. It's like, oh, a lot of really not cool things. But oh no. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Ooh, ooh, Brian's talking about that big old ant. Okay, so there is a kind of ant down there that isn't, it's red like a fire ant, but it looks like it's huge and it looks like it's made out of velvet. And apparently, those are even worse than fire ants. I'm not sure if they're an actual, if they even count as an actual ant, but they definitely look like ants and they act like ants. But apparently, they're even worse. Like, they were at my middle school one time. They decided that they were like crawling up in a line. They were marching up this one wall, and the teachers and everybody had to like they put up like all this stuff to keep kids from playing anywhere near this wall. They were like, "You do not want to go anywhere near over there." Giant fire ant. Yep, velvet. Ah!
It looks so fuzzy. Oh god, it looks like it's getting ready to grow wings and fly. It looks like a combination between an ant and a hornet.
Yeah, well, that's fire ants. Fire ants, they bite you and sting you. They're ants with stingers, and these velvet ones are supposed to feel like, closer to a wasp sting when they get you. But yeah, they
Das
will bite you
Mutina
and
orcanalis.
sting you at the same time.
Red velvet ant.
Yes.
Or cow killer.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
What? The ants take out cows?
Yes.
Whoa.
Dude, they
Is-
can man, no, even regular fire ants, dude. They can eat. They can fucking eat, man. And they can eat fast. Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, looks like right? Looks like there's red velvet on it. It actually looks kind of
It is
pretty.
a species of parasitoid wasp. It's a freaking wasp. Oh my god,
So
it is a wasp.
wasp.
Native to the eastern United States, it is commonly mistaken for a member of the true ant family,
Yep.
as the female is wingless. Oh my god, some of them have wings? That's terrifying. They fly now.
Yeah, and they
Right.
get called ants. Which is
Well, it looks
weird
like
because, like
ants.
I said, there was a line of them. They were acting like ants. They were marching up and down this wall. So maybe that is not even the same, but that's the velvety. That's velvet looking right there. It looks like it.
There you
And
go,
yeah,
Wayne.
their sting is
1
supposed to
point.
feel like. But yeah, regular like fire ants that are real ants, they bite you and sting you at the same time. And their little biters are no joke either. They're just assholes. They're
They
extremely aggressive. Extremely.
females are capable of an extremely painful sting, hence the name cow killer. They are quick moving and often take a defensive posture when threatened. Instead of
Yeet.
creating nests, the females seek out the brood cells of eastern cicada killers and horse guard wasps, as well as other large, round nesting members of the Cabrodea, where they deposit an egg into a host larva. The egg quickly hatches into a white legless grub, which consumes the host, goes through several larva stages prior to pupation. Oh my god, it's like a xenomorph. It freaking aliens.
It's evil's what it is. Oh, I know what a xenomorph is. I'm just like, yeah, it's definitely fucking evil, man. It has no other purpose on this planet other than to just be evil.
Whoa. This dude, and they have like their own signals and stuff like that. They're putting out like, whoa. It's like he's putting out stridation squeaking noises. So there's an auto mimicry cry. So like they're literally signaling to each other. They have like their own radar. Or bugdar, or antdar, or waspdar.
Evil radar.
You do not. Wow. I probably shouldn't be showing this to you right now. I'm like thinking about what happened to you as a child. These are contributing factors of why I'm such a terrible human being. Yes, yes, I know. Wow, you totally agree. Defense. The Velvet Ant. Oh, I'm not even sharing the other thing. What am I doing? Oh, I'm such a bad person. I
just
should
forgot
probably
you
take away the
did.
triggering things and actually go to the Wikipedia article that I'm
Yeah, I
reading.
just been looking at the
It's,
picture while
this
you're
whole
telling
time,
me.
I'm like, why is there still the big triggering ant on the screen? I'm like, oh, okay.
You're
Here
just
we go.
telling me all these terrifying facts about it
Oh, it's still in front of you.
while
Wow.
I'm looking at it.
So my friend an ant in her house the other day. We didn't see her for the next 3 weeks.
I would pee my pants.
Defense. The Velvet
I'm
Ant
just
has
kidding. I don't wear
multiple.
pants.
Yep. Well, hey, you can pants if you want to. The Velvet Ant has multiple defensive strategies, but is best known for its extremely painful sting, earning it the nickname of Cow Killer. Its defenses include a thickened exoskeleton, the ability to run fast and evasively, warning coloration, stridation warning sounds, a chemical secretion, and venom. What? Wait,
Bruh.
okay. So hold on. So it has thickened armor, high maneuverability, as well as evasion skills, radar and counter radar to notify the other red velvet ants around. It has chemical communication abilities as well as poison.
Yep.
Now, I'm not
It's
saying
an
it's
evil
evil. I'm just saying that's freaking awesome, man. It's like a murder ant.
It is very much a murder.
It's a wasp, but it's got multiple Oh my god. What happens if the murder hornets and murder ants mate?
Ah!
Is that how we get
We all
xenomorphs?
die.
I think that's how we get xenomorphs. No,
Yeah.
no, because the main difference is like the murder hornet. It's we'll go to murder hornet because we can. I'm terrified about when we hear about them again because it's like, well, I think we have this taken care of, and then we had a plague and maybe nuclear war. But yeah, murder hornets. The rush to stop. Okay, it's from the Times. This is from probably like 5 months ago. Nobody would ever dox himself on the internet. It's okay. But yeah, murder hornets in the U.S. The rush to stop the Asian giant hornet. Sightings of the. I mean, that's like 2.5 inches there. At that point, now you're taking something from another part of the world, combining it with like another terrifying similar thing.
That shouldn't have
What?
been in this world either.
Oh my god. It's like arachnophobia, except bugs, flying, stingy, bitey, maneuverable, thick exoskeleton bugs.
Oh boy. I don't even think they need wings. They're evil enough on ground, man.
Well, that's the terrifying thing. Because what happens if, okay, so if you, and again, I'm not a biologist, but what happens if you had a combination and then they had the ability that some could just be ground soldiers and you got basically the red velvet ant and then you added in the size of a murder hornet. So you're going from like 3/4 of an inch to potentially 2.5 inch murder ant. It can swarm you from the ground and the skies. It's a two-pronged
Oh my
approach.
gosh, they would have it all freaking. Oh no.
I love how we're theorizing that if somehow we manage to get over 100-year plague and avoid World War III, this may be the next challenge we actually have to deal with. Because all I know is I'm like, wait, you got a highly invasive species. I'm like, I remember they were trying to stop them, but I'm like, what happens if they don't? Because like I thought we actually needed honeybees because like pollination and actual like getting stuff and things to grow. Like they do a lot of work. If all of a sudden all the honeybees are dead, I don't think that's a good thing for the ecosystem.
Yeah. It's not. No.
It's no, we're not going to use, even though I'm not even going to address that. Oh my God, here's the thing. It's like, wait, no, would that be a biological weapon? Would
Ooh, I think it
weaponize,
would.
because it literally is a biological thing. Are we trying to do different classification? I'm like,
Well, it requires knowledge in biology.
that would be a requisite skill. I would, if I was putting together something to roll for, if we were to turn like life and this into a game, biology would be the applicable skill roll.
Yes.
Oh God, if we haven't gotten this under control, like this is gonna be terrible. Oh my God, in the decades of beekeeping, Ted McFall had never seen anything like it. As he pulled his truck up to check on a group of hives near Custer, Washington in November, he could spot from the window a mess of bee carcasses on the ground. As he looked closer, he saw a pile of dead members of the colony in front of a hive and more carnage inside. Thousands and thousands of bees with their heads torn from their bodies and no sign of a culprit.
What?
I couldn't wrap my head around what could have done that. Mr. McFall said. Only later did he come to suspect the killer was what some researchers simply call the murder hornet. Yeah.
Bruh.
With queens that can grow to 2 inches long, Asian giant hornets can use mandibles shaped like spiked shark fins to wipe out a honeybee hive in a matter of hours, decapitating the bees and flying away with the thoraxes to feed their young. For larger targets, the hornets' potent venom and stinger, long enough to puncture a beekeeping suit, make for an excruciating combination that the victims have likened to hot metal driving into their skin.
Oh my God. No.
Oh my God. This is in Japan, the hornets kill up to 50 people a year. Now, for the first time they have arrived in the United States. Mr. McFall still is not certain that Asian giant hornets were responsible for the plunder of his hive, but 2 of the predatory insects were discovered last fall in the northwest corner of Washington State, a few miles north of his property. The first sightings in the United States. Scientists have since embarked on a full-scale hunt for the hornets, worried that invaders could decimate bee populations in the United States and establish such a deep presence that all hopes for eradication could be lost. Now, I'm not saying that we have a history of something taking root in the United States and not being able to get a handle on it, but as long as we don't fail the asteroid drill, I still think we're fine. Because in 2019, oh, we don't need this anymore. In 2019, we essentially, a group of collaboration of basically folks around the world, so many of the smartest scientists, they got together and they ran 2 emergency drills. The first was for a pandemic. The second was to basically deflect an asteroid getting ready to hit the Earth. We failed both those drills. And history seems to have played out. We kind of failed the first IRL. If we fail the second IRL, I think that's GG.
Yeah.
Just saying. Because I mean, the whole thing, like, yeah, you get technology, more greenhouses, higher food production. If we can start growing meat and it's healthy and tasty. I've had some good veggie burgers. I'm just saying, I'm not opposed to it. The more murder we can minimize, I think that's a positive. It is tasty though.
It'll get people eat their veggies.
I mean, I like veggies. This is the thing. But oh my God, I probably need to look this up, Brian. And VR had a brief talk about the insects Armageddon. Anyone else notices that there are less insects hitting our windshield these days compared to when we were kids? Yeah.
Well,
See, I tend to think that that may have been kind of like extreme changes in the weather. A lot of folks are getting even more and more crazy about climate change. And I sit back and I'm like, see, my thing is like, I'm like, all right, that sounds like a thing. And then people are arguing. I don't really know. See, what I look at, Piper, is when I hear folks make arguments, I'm like, okay, I listen for things that seem out of sync because I'm like, okay, I assume this person that's kind of pro this is going to say this, this person that's anti this is going to say this. Okay, I look for deviations, and when one of my more conservative friends was like, well, if what they're saying is happening, you would notice this, and it'd be like you'd see very arid areas, kind of deserty areas, start to become more lush and green over a period of time. And then I was cruising on Facebook. And a couple of weeks later, I clicked on a picture. It's like, here's a 15-year thing from basically kind of this part over in Asia that happened to be kind of more of a deserty, arid area. And you look at the 15-year later thing, and this was actually a completely different thing. It was basically just, here are pictures over a course of time. Because the picture actually looked pretty good. Because you look at it, it's like, oh, this deserty area is kind of looking more lush and green. I'm like,
oh,
so the person that kind of is very skeptical of this thing says, these are the observations you would see for this to be the case. I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm looking at it, and it wasn't even phrased in any type of quote unquote political or taking a side. It's just like, here's the thing, here's some pictures. Some folks were like, oh, cool, go us. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, okay, I mean, that might be kind of cool for there. I'm like, what might the also consequences be? Because Again, I'm not a climatologist. I'm not even really a real scientist. Well, I'm a scientist on the internet stuff and things. It's well, really just a dude, I guess. I'm not even going to say internet academic. Okay, I will say that later. But
you'll say
all I'm
it
saying,
later.
it's just because the meme of crud's like, internet academics assemble. I'm like, I heard that. And then you just got into a whole bunch of Discord drama and just, oh my God, everything. I'm like,
Discord drama activates.
yeah, it is a great dumpster fire. All I know is I'm like, when you got Mr. Mediker saying it's like, yeah, it's too much drama for me, man. It's literally just, am I sitting back? I'm like, whoa, totally right. But it depends on how things come out and end up touching you in some way, shape, or form, whether you want to or not. It's the internet.
Oh,
it's
whoa.
the internet.
No means no, man.
Consent, yeah, consent matters. What were we talking about? Okay, bugs, this, that. My brain broke.
Oh, no.
Where are we going back? Oh, wait, no, I have the straight. I can go
Ants.
back. No, after ants.
Okay, good. We're after ants.
Oh, we were talking about the science. Hold on. No, I'll show it. We'll get very meta. Here we go. Boom. Yeah. Here we go. But just because I can't remember. More lush and green. I'm like, oh yeah, climate. Okay, thank you.
Nice.
Well, I mean, we have the internet. Why don't we do this? I agree with Professor Wolfram. Computers are my friends. This is the guy that literally.
That's a good idea. Shit.
Well, this is the thing. It's like, because people have conversations like, oh, I forgot what I said. It's like, oh, let's move on. It's like, no, I actually wanted to make a point. Why wouldn't I spend like the 20 or 30 seconds rather than being like 20 minutes later? I don't know about genius there. But see,
True.
Bruce Willis, we need to protect him. Apparently, he might have a thing with headbutting people. Maybe it was him or Kiefer Sutherland. I don't know. But Kiefer Sutherland is the Bruce Willis of 24. Or vice versa. God, that was a good show. But, oh, no, the thing, I'm like, all I know is back in, like, the 5th grade, like, we built terrariums. So basically, you take, like, the 2-liter soda bottles, and you cut them out, and you turn the upside down, and you fill the bottom with some water. Maybe you toss a little few fish and some things there, and then you have like the dirt, and you throw a little bit of grass and sod, and maybe you have like a few bugs or something in there, and like the water can drain down. So like as long as you water it, like technically some stuff should be able to live there for a while. And I'm like, if you get a bunch more water into basically a more or less kind of closed system, like there's going to be more stuff and things going on, right? I'm just saying if there's something reasonable that we can do, like while advancing technology and bettering humanity, and like maybe not like poisoning Mother Earth, I think that's
That's usually a
things
good
that
idea.
I think it's things that we can agree with, because especially like, well, if this is the only rock we have, if all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, okay. And one of my friends is like, well, the oceans maybe rise like 2 feet. I'm like, 2 feet? I'm like, dude, man, if like there's a storm surge already, we're getting freaking like 15, 20-foot storm surges for some of these big storms. I'm like, that's only just a wall of water. If you just add in 2 feet to the entire ocean, does that 15, 20-foot storm surge become like, I don't know, 30 or 40 feet? Like,
Right?
you're taking away a couple more. I'm just saying it could be really bad for folks that are on the coast there.
Yeah.
And again, some that and like the weather kind of will probably become more erratic just because there's more of like a fluid popping around. See, we came full circle. We went from like
Fluids.
quark slash a potentially strange fluid to fluids that we kind of understand, but I think we just kind of politicize because it's something to argue about. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, isn't the solution to this rather than just like, I don't know, like pillaging Mother Earth and putting a whole bunch of like smoke and stuff into the air? I'm like, couldn't we still generate a lot of electricity and people still be able to make a lot of money and like actually be able to advance other things? Like if we actually had like fusion power, or maybe if we started building thorium reactors 10 or 20 years ago, it's like we could have power and not really worry about the boom, and like fairly cheap and reliable, and don't need to worry about a whole bunch of BS, and maybe upgrade our 60 plus year old infrastructure. So I don't know, maybe if like something bad happens with like one transformer, like an entire state or like New York City doesn't go like out for like a day, it's like, what if we had, because all I know is we have the technology. We're at the point now where like twisted multi-layer graphene, I'm like, we're able to get like superconductivity at like higher temperatures. I'm like, wait. So what you're saying is we're on the cusp of actually solving these problems to the point where it's like, okay, if we can have low cost, whether it's nuclear, whether it's fusion, whatever it might be, it's like if we have the ability to like have much more sustainable, much not having to worry about a whole bunch of BS happening, we can transfer it over great distances with little to any loss. I'm like, don't we have the ability to like overcome like these engineering challenges and like make things better for everybody? Because at that point, it's like, well, you're the power company or whatever. It's like, all right, we have a sustainable thing. Yeah, it's a big investment, but guess what? Once we're established, we have the ability to just make money. Okay, all right. Now people don't necessarily worry about having to have all these lines going down. Maybe it's like, just have different things where it's like we upgrade it so it's like a branch doesn't fall and like half a city goes out. I'm just saying.
Yeah. For reals though.
Well, exactly, and you might actually be able to stay online. You don't need to worry about getting disconnected from the internet as much. See you there, Monterey. Okay,
Oh,
hey,
man.
these things happen.
That would
Degenerate
be nice.
matter, that is. But I don't know. I got it. Well, McCracken. Hey, let's try to avoid that. Apparently, according to the tests, we need higher, basically, fissional bombs rather than fusional bombs. You want higher, I think, was it neutron yield? All I know is kind of like the H bomb with a fusion, it's giving off electromagnetism. You want more of a concussive force because since you're kind of in essentially a vacuum where you don't have all the atmosphere here, the energy released from that to deflect something in space, you don't have all the air being pushed. There might be some superfluid or something, but it's technically a superfluid, so you don't get that extra oomph So you want to have the actual fissionable material be able to just kind of deflect it a little bit off. At least that's what I've learned from the internet, but that's all I really got, Piper. We're going for over an
Internet is
hour.
smart.
Well, this is the thing. When you put enough stuff out, this is how I basically kind of stumbled upon, because at least my mother always said, it's like, well, when Memes wants to do something, he will get it done. And I'm like, very often I'm just very lazy. I'm like, eh. And I'm like, I saw Dr. Eric Weinstein. He was on the Joe Rogan Experience. And all of a sudden he started talking about spinners. I'm like, what happens? It's like, he needs to go around twice to get back. I'm like, that's fascinating. So I got intrigued. So I started following these different things. And then I see Dr. Eric Weinstein. He's talking about geometric unity. He comes on this quote unquote theories of everything for BBS Spacetime, who Matt was the gentleman over there that we had first saw. And then I came across Professor Brian Keating, the Nick Fury of the physics community. And I'm like, all right, he has a YouTube channel. So I started following him when he was down like probably less like 5,000, maybe a few more than that. Now he's up like 55,000. He's on like Lex Friedman podcast. So he's getting more notoriety. I'm like, he's a cosmologist. He hides his power level really well. He also had the opportunity, if there hadn't been a lot of dust, he probably could have won the Nobel Prize. Like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. But all I know, I'm following him. I'm coming across all these different folks. And then just randomly one day, after like loading up my algorithm with all these different like Wolfram physics videos and learning all these different things, I think it was Thad Roberts that happened to follow or like something that Professor Keating had put out. And also I'm like, mouse over on Twitter. Oh, this gentleman's a theoretical physicist. I'm like, I like those things. Oh. And then one day, while I'm just out for a jog, I'm like, let me find some drama things that I'm going to disagree with my friends so I can push back while I'm out for a run in the chat. And all of a sudden, I'm like, it's happening. I'm like, source code 7. I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. I'm like, isn't this the thing that like this is that theoretical physicist guy? I'm like, let me click on this. Coming like, I don't know, 14, 15 minutes into it. And I'm listening and I'm like, okay, platonic solids and stuff. I'm like, this is very interesting. I'm like, if half the things that this dude is saying is true, this is absolutely revolutionary. But again, I just assume just a random dude on the internet, because I am a random dude on the internet. So I'm like, I take it all in stride. And then the very next day, they came out with the muon G2 results. And I'm like, all right, this is observation. And they're like, all right, this is very interesting. And I'm like, oh, I tweet at the gentleman. I'm like, does this help your model? He's like, yes. I come home. I look at the Fermilab results, and I'm like, okay. And I look at what was in the video that had premiered the day before that I had just been listening to a lot on a run. I look at the numbers. I'm like, dude, man, nailed it. I think they were up to like 13 significant digits or something. I'm like, this guy predicted the muon G2 results. I'm like, go on. So I go back and start listening to it more. And now I've had him on for like the second time. And I'm like, all right, I have to be someone outside academia. I'm like, Dr. Eric Weinstein was attempting to literally just brute force geometrically unify like quantum field theory. I'm like, he's like, he got really close. And I'm like, this dude basically went on Wolfram Alpha and basically just ground it out. He also got an email that kind of let him know what was going on. So here we go. We'll do this one last time with the added context, because I think Kotov was asking about this. I will finish that video. I need to just I have all the pieces now. I'm gonna try and have it be about 10 minutes to tell my story. Maybe I'll write a book about it, but I think there's gonna be a lot of pictures, because I feel like do you think a picture book talking about a really cool story, like adults would be open to that?
I think that would be neat.
Like kind of like take screenshots of like things that I actually did, and then like actually write some summaries, especially if it's of folks that people might actually be familiar with. Basically, it's a way to avoid having to write like 800 pages of just me blathering on. I just write maybe like 200 pages and have a bunch of cool pictures. But it was essentially for like this.
What is the theory of everything? What does the theory of everything seek to accomplish? I get a lot of emails. I'm sure both of you guys do. I've got this theory of the early universe. I need to, or of grand unification. Can you help me prove it? And I'll share, my Nobel Prize proceeds with you. I actually asked that of Reese, and he said, yeah, how do you think I won the Nobel Prize in physics?
I did get somebody the same email from actually somebody I had never met before, and said, hey, do you know what this conversation online? And somebody had noticed an equation that could close to predict the fine structure constant.
The fine structure constant. It's a dimensionless description of the strength of the electromagnetic force.
What about experimental validation? Is that a fair standard to hold before a theory of everything that's trying to unify quantum mechanics and gravity?
Remind you, this is our Mars rover moment. 10 years, thousands of people, years of effort, suddenly in one moment being revealed to the collaboration.
April
And
7th,
lucky for you guys, you get to see that
2021.
moment because we recorded it.
The number we had predicted is right here, safely right in the experimental average. Right? Beautiful, beautiful. And more important, notice I give a little thickness to the line there just so you can see where it is, but that's a line with no thickness. That's an exact geometric prediction out to any digit you want. Okay, beautiful.
What you see here is the frequency on the clock on the lower number.
39997844.
7844.
Same number. Yay!
Yep. It's the same number.
And this is what we get.
Whoa!
Looks a lot like what that had there.
We confirm page 21.
These are the central parameters that encode our geometric understanding of reality.
What's that? April 6th?
Literally, to the error bars. This literally lists the most important constructive parameters of existence.
To see a world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour.
I'm just saying, I'm like, this can't possibly be reality. Real life is stranger than fiction.
Which is like awesome, considering we all turned to fiction to escape real life.
Oh my god, it is the complex plane. We just came full circle. And I wasn't sure if you were paused for a second, just because I saw the look on your face. I'm like, that's probably the actual look she's making. I'm like, I don't even know at this point. I'm like, it could just be glitch, but that's all I got for like the third time.
Sometimes the glitch is real.
Sometimes the glitch are real.
Yep.
But Piper's channel is in the doobly-doo below. Feel free to go check Adventures with Piper out. She does some stuff and things over there, as well as I do need to actually add your Twitch, because you actually do Twitch stuff and things on a more frequent basis there. So
You said doo-doo.
oh my god, I probably did.
Yeah, you did.
This is why we get along. But that's all I got, folks.
We
Peace out,
say all this
everybody.
smart stuff and then we say doo-doo.
Oh god, and it usually gets worse after.
Some people are like slinkies. It's fun to push them down the stairs and watch them fall.
See, well, either that or log. It's like do 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 do. What rolls downstairs over and bears rolls over your neighbor's dog. What's great for a snack and fits on your back? It's log, log, log. It's log, log. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log, log. It's better than that. It's good. Come on and get your log. Everyone needs a log. Come on and get your log. Everyone needs a log. Log from Blammo.
What the fuck is going on here?
I don't know if there's like innuendo happening here or if he's just talking about lumber. I don't.
You've never watched. I forgot how long that was. That was like the full clip that I had done of it. See, again, this is why I don't get invited places, because I was invited to that. That was an actual interview. I totally need to start reciprocating. Apparently, that's important in reality, but oh god, before we get
Do you like turtles?
all right, we're done, everybody. Peace out.
Have you guys checked out the Memes of Destruction's channel? He's an interesting dude. I like him.